going to introduce our speaker, Sara Griesbach from Nasonville Dairy. Sara was born and raised in Marshfield, Wisconsin. She went to college at UW River Falls, graduated in 2011 with a bachelor's of science in food science and technology with an emphasis in dairy technology. During college, she worked at the UW River Falls Dairy pilot plant. And she also worked at Foremost Farms in Marshfield as a production supervisor. She's currently working at Nasonville Dairy in Marshfield since 2016 as a food safety coordinator in cheese development. In 2024, she became the third woman to achieve the Wisconsin Master Cheesemaker Award, which if you guys don't know anything about the Wisconsin Master Cheesemaker, we're the only place outside of Switzerland to offer a Master Cheesemaker program. So that's cool. Hopefully you might be talking about it. I don't know. She currently resides in Stratford with her husband and 4 children. They live on a 6th-generation dairy farm, milking 170 cows with Lely A5 robotic milkers and cropping around 500 acres in partnership with his parents. And then in the spare time she has, she likes to garden and bake with her family. So let's welcome Sara.
All right, yeah. As she said, I'm Sara Griesbach. Yeah, I know you guys had a little bit of history this morning, but we're gonna do a little bit too. So this is my family. And actually in the background, you can actually see our farm. Like she said, we were a 6th-generation farm. So I really didn't have a choice when I met my husband and wanted to marry him. I knew I was going to live. I knew that I would never be able to move either, which is okay. It's a crazy busy life, but anyone that is in that world, I don't think you'd ever switch out of it. So we'll get into it a little more. But yeah, there's my kids. The littlest one on there is only about 6 months old, but now she's a year and a half. So right now they range from 1 to 9. It's a very busy household all the time. And yes, we don't have a lot of downtime, but so like she said before, I went to school at University of River Falls. I actually did not go there for dairy or anything like that. I didn't live on a farm growing up. My dad lived on a farm growing up, and we did live out in the country. A little bit that I did was maybe help my uncle pick rocks. Every farm kid knows how to pick rocks. You try to get out of that chore, but we would help him, and then I would also help with crops from running a combine every so often, helping with hay. So I was in it a little bit, but I actually went to River Falls, didn't know what I was going to major in, and I actually applied for a dishwashing job because I had work study and I paid for my college myself, and so I needed a job. And then Renee May from the university called me and said, well, we need some people in our pilot plant. And so, okay, so I started working in the cheese plant. The first thing every freshman does is shred cheese. It's the worst job there. And so I started doing that. And then as your schedule kind of goes, you kind of get in the plant making cheese more. From there, a lot of the upper people that were, juniors and seniors, they kind of persuade you to go into the cheese industry. And once you're in it, you're in it. You really are. It's a great industry. There's a lot, everyone knows each other. So I was in, went to River Falls. By the time I was on my senior year of high school, I actually already got my full-time job at Foremost. I'd come home to Marshfield on the weekends and work. So senior year was kind of a blur because it was just very fast-paced, crazy. But I was at Foremost for 5 years and then moved on to Nasonville Dairy. But kind of in the meantime, different certifications that I've gotten is a PCQI from the FDA. It's to do a food safety plan in the plants. And I do have my pasteurizer license. I have my cheesemaker license. Each pasteurizer has to be sealed, so then we can't change different classifications and everything in there. I am one of the 2 in the state of Wisconsin that can actually reseal a pasteurizer. The state does have to come back in and do it, but I can kind of do it on the fly. You have to get certified through the state. So I am one of 2 of those. The other one is actually in our plant. So I haven't heard if there's anyone else getting into that yet. And of course, so this is actually a picture of me in one of our plants. It's just by a vat and everything. So we'll go more into that. But becoming the dairy state, Dr. Lucy might have kind of said before, Wisconsin was a wheat. Back in the 1800s, Wisconsin was known for wheat, not for dairy, which I kind of really didn't know about that until I researched this a little bit. So it's kind of a learning opportunity for everyone. From 1840 to 1880, we were called America's breadbasket. We grew about 1/6 of the wheat in Wisconsin. But by the time the 1850s came, prices are lowering, quality is lowering, and there was a large insect invasion, which didn't really help that industry. So by the time the 19th century came, dairy farming came in, mainly from the New Yorkers coming through the Erie canals, coming from the Great Lakes system. And they brought all their innovations because of people were from Germany, Norway, Switzerland, and that's where dairy kind of came. So we got just a couple pictures here, just of definitely not how we farm anymore. I'm definitely glad that we have the innovation to do more than what the horses and everything have here. So here's just kind of some pictures to really see how dairy has evolved in Wisconsin. Growing up, my grandma used to tell me that she was in charge of milking 3 cows, of course, by hand, like in the upper right corner, before she went to school. By herself. Each of her and her brothers had a couple cows every day that they had to milk, plus her dad did, and that was their chores every day. And of course, you got in trouble when the cow kicked over the bucket. You kind of had it was just, she would just tell me stories like, man, your parents got really mad at you for that. But just a lot of innovations since then. This picture actually is a picture from my farm, or my husband's farm back in says 1906. I think it was the 2nd generation on our farm. There was a lot of innovation down in UW-Madison down here, where they had different speakers talk about silos and just more of the innovation in the dairy industry. And we actually have a write-up from my husband's grandfather, who talked about his grandfather coming down to Madison, which was a trek from Stratford area, which is 2 hours north of here, but in the 1900s, it took them a while to get down here. The community around us actually thought he was crazy. Putting up a silo was crazy, and they all said that his cows would die within 2 years because of the silo gases. Obviously, we know that's not happening. So that's kind of a cool picture to really share. It's our original barn. Actually, it still stands by my house. We don't use it. We kind of renovated the bottom of it for our calves, but otherwise we don't keep our cows in it anymore. But kind of some more examples of farming. The bottom left here is actually one of our family friends down the road. It's a tie stall barn, so just an example of kind of how our barn used to be, how we used to keep our cows. And you have to go in between every single cow and milk them and whatnot. The upper right is actually an example of cow comfort. These barns have really been innovated, and cow comfort is one of the number one things. You're going to get more milk from a cow that is comfortable compared to one that is in stress all day. And then the bottom right is actually that comes from my farm. We have 3 Lely robotic milkers. We We put ours in, what did we say? Put ours in 2012. We've had them. We were one of the first ones in the state to get an A4 robot. Now this is actually an A5 robot. So there's a couple different models of robotic milkers around. This is just the Lely version. And so our cows actually come in freely. They're kind of leered with like a candy, like a pellet that brings them in. It smells really good because it's kind of like candy to them. There's actually a sensor on their collar that so we know every cow has a number, and so we know exactly what cow comes into the milking area and if it needs to get milked or not. It'll depend on there are graphs and different on our computer models that we look at, and we have it down to okay when we predict that she's going to give about this pounds of milk, then we'll milk her. We have a program where a cow can milk up to 6 times a day. We we do have some cows on average getting milked 5.7 times a day. So she just is very leered to it, just likes going in. We have some ones that will circle. So actually coming out, they walk in here. They walk in, walk in this way and they're coming out this way. There's a set of gates, and so it will refuse them and it will just open up their gate. Some will rock around there until they get milked. They're crazy. And then once they get milked, they go lay down or go eat or something like that. So it is kind of fun to actually like really just stand in the barn and watch them. A lot of people that have come in our barn just wonder, it's just crazy how more quiet it is because the cows are very calm, they're very relaxed. It is like I know our hoof trimmer has come in the first time we had these, and he's just like, I've never had a barn like this. But yeah, it's cow comfort has really is really the innovation and is really the way. There are obviously other ways to milk a cow besides these two. At Nasonville Dairy, our owners also own Hyman Holsteins, which is right up the road from Nasonville Dairy. They have a rotary parlor where the cow just gets on the rotary and just makes a circle and then eventually gets off. I hear that they love it. Apparently, there's some that want to just ride it. I think it sounds fun too, but so we didn't have that. We don't have a big enough farm because we milk 170 cows, and that's for your 500 plus dairies. Just more economical that way. So here's I did get to look at our whole history profile for Nasonville Dairy. So I got a couple of pictures up. Actually, the upper left I just found online. I wanted to represent that people used to put milk into the cans like this and bring them to the factories. Actually, kind of a little story. My husband kind of reminded me of this morning. Our farm was one of the first grade A farms in the Stratford area. And so we went actually from milk cans to bulk. And we had to switch to a different cheese factory to send our milk to because the cheese factory that was a half a mile down the road from us actually wouldn't take our milk because they weren't in cans. And they said, oh, this is never going to take off. Bulk is never going to take off. Well, it did. Lynn Dairy actually in Marshall is one of the only in our area that actually just still takes canned milk today because we have a lot of Amish Mennonite farms in our area yet. So, but it's kind of fun to see those milk cans hold about 75 pounds of milk. I mean, they are very heavy when they're full. And I'm very glad that has gone out of style, that's for sure. But the top right is actually Nasonville Dairy. I think Nasonville Dairy started in about 1885. I'm not sure exactly the date on that picture, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around there. You can definitely see the horses because that's back in the day. That's how we brought the milk down the road. Our farm actually with back then being a half a mile down the road, I guess if they had a shortage of milk, they would call up my husband's great-great-grandpa and say, okay, do you have any cans ready to go? Because we're like, we're waiting for some to come in, and he would get his horses and go down our lane and go drop it off. So it would be cool, really cool to see that. It would be really cool to have a cheese factory a half a mile from my house, because then I could just walk there. But that one's no longer going anymore. And then the bottom right picture is just another picture of in Nasonville Dairy. It's just an open vat. Just a couple cheese facts about Wisconsin. Wisconsin cheese is sold in 99% of the grocery stores nationwide. I do get a puzzle of this because we have around Christmas time, we have people come in our little store with suitcases and just go, and I'm just like, our cheese goes everywhere. Like, why do you need? And they're like, oh, we go back to Texas and we can't get good cheese. And like, it's sold everywhere. Like, so I don't know what is going on. Like, why you can't get our cheese in the grocery stores? But yeah, we do. We really I had a help in the store one season when they were so busy time and they were a lack of people, and I was just amazed by how many people come in with a suitcase. Like, that's just really weird. I did have a cousin that she went to school at University of Texas A&M, and they said they would have to do the same thing every time they came home. They'd have to come back. They had all the orders with the people on their street, and it just is so puzzling to me. So I mean, maybe some of you from other states like know what I'm talking about, but I think in Wisconsin, we have it pretty great here where you can pretty much go a couple miles down the road and see a little tiny like restaurant or store with that sells Wisconsin cheese. And so, yeah, you guys can kind of read the facts. It says over 1,200 licensed cheesemakers. I actually have this right. I went to a meeting earlier in Madison this morning, and I got the exact numbers. So in Wisconsin, we have 1,327 licensed cheesemakers. Obviously, the ones that are in training that don't have their license yet. We got a lot of those coming up. We have 338 cheese graders, which we'll kind of go into a little bit. We have 4,805 grade A producers. So that is farms that sell grade A milk. And then we have 761 grade B producers. So quite a bit lower than, in recent years, but we're still going strong as farming is huge for us in the state. So let's learn about making cheese, right? So this is kind of a little schematic about that I got offline, kind of show it all in a nutshell. From bringing raw milk in, obviously we don't bring it in cans in our facility anymore. Going through pasteurizing, some places standardize, adding the micro or the cheese cultures, renneting, and so on. So we'll go through each of these. So raw milk. We start with raw milk. Composition, it's about 97% water, about 13% solids, which equal about 3.7% fat, 4 to 5% protein, which 20% of it is whey casing, 80% of or whey proteins, 80% of it is casing, and then 4.8% lactose, and then a little less than 1 is your salts. So we bring the raw milk in. Ours gets brought in bulk semis. It's picked up at the farm. So we have people, our drivers that go out to the farm are also certified by the state of Wisconsin. They need to know how to properly sample bulk tanks because that sample is used for payment and because of these components. So they have to know how to do it right, and they need to know how to read the meter on the farm, so then you know how many pounds is sold also for payment. But we also look for adulterations. As you're picking it up, you don't want any like Barney flavor, Barney odors. Of course, like smell that in our barn, but you're not gonna want to get like off flavors, even like oniony or something like that. You want to look for texture issues like ropiness, just because those are, you could easily have a cow that is on antibiotic or something and accidentally went in there, or just some bacterial issues. And you're going to kind of see, there's some kind of indicators before we actually would test for that at the plant. All our milk is tested for drug residue. The truck usually backs in, a sample is taken. Our test, the one that we do, is an 8-minute test. Some are down to about 3 minutes. And then after that, if they're good to go, we will attach the hose and it will get brought into our silo. If those trucks do contain any type of antibiotic, it will be flagged, and that truck, it does have, we do have a couple procedures to go through if we do, to confirm like where the farm actually came from that had it and whatnot. And then that farm actually buys that tank of milk, because we at the plant cannot use it. That truck also is rejected. Most likely it will go to a nearby larger farm and go in their manure pit, which eventually will get field spreaded. But we cannot use that milk, because down the road you can have some quality issues. Your yields with antibiotics in that milk is going to just tank. And then plus temperatures, there's different regulations within the times that you milk on the farm that you can have, but usually all of our milk has to come in at 45 degrees or less, just so it's high quality. You don't want warm milk, otherwise microbes are going to start growing. So yeah, we got fat is the biggest one. It relies on in the cheese. It is the biggest indicator for your body and for your flavor of your cheeses. Casing is the major. The casing, the 80% of that protein, is the major component of the curd. It also contributes to the body, contributes to flavor of the cheese. The lactose is used to start the cultures out. Once we put those in, it's a food source. It could also be used for flavor. You do different techniques to keep or shed the lactose at the end, because it can cause some browning in your cheese if you don't, like some of your pizza cheeses, like your mozzarella's. A lot of that residual lactose kind of gets. We kind of add water to it to kind of get it away. If you don't like the browning, it can cause browning in your cheese. And then your salts, some of the salts that are in there is calcium. Obviously, it helps bind protein as you go. So the next thing you usually do is you have your raw milk. You can decide if you want to pasteurize the milk or if you want to make a raw milk cheese. If you make a raw milk cheese, you do have to hold it for 60 days. That is a nationwide, statewide requirement. So they cannot physically, they will store it. It will not be in the stores until after 60 days. But pasteurization, of course, is your thermal processing to destroy pathogenic bacteria. A couple different ways to pasteurize milk. We have batch pasteurization, so it's just in a chamber. It goes up to 145 degrees, 150 degrees for about 30 minutes, and then it'll be a lot of your smaller plants will do that, or if you're making like small ice cream or something like that, usually batch. In bigger cheese factories, we do not use batch pasteurization. It would take way too long. A lot of times we use HTSD, which is high temperature, short time. The milk goes up to 161 degrees for at least 15 seconds. So then from there it goes, and then UHT is the other one. We really don't use UHT in cheese making, mainly because it will start to denature some of our proteins, which then down the road will make not a good piece of cheese. But pasteurization, your HCS depasteurization will kill 99.999% of bacteria. So of course there's that little tiny smudge that there might be some bacteria in there, but it's definitely reducing it. So from there, you can also standardize your milk. It depends kind of what cheeses you're making. In our plant, we make American styles, which is your cheddar, Colby, Monterey Jacks, and then varieties of those, where we do not standardize milk for that. Whatever comes in, we use. Your fats might be higher, your proteins might be higher or lower, and we just go from there. They'll vary more. Where we also make feta cheese, and there we actually standardize our milk so we get a different body. We usually, Nasonville kind of makes a feta with a tad higher fat, but it just gives us a different flavor, different compared to like a competitor down the road or whatnot. And then we also make some low fat and no fat varieties, so we obviously have to skim off the fat. We then sell the fat down the road to Grassland, which is one of the biggest butter producers in the world. So that they're about a half an hour or 45 minutes away from us. So trucking that is pretty easy to them. But starter cultures convert lactose to lactic acid. Different cultures are used for different cheeses. It gives your flavor, plus it starts working to reduce your pH. pH of milk is usually around 6-7 to start with. So it kind of starts bringing that down. Some crazy things with starter cultures. You got to make sure that your environment is very clean. Otherwise, you can start developing phages. The starter culture mixes that we use are different microbes that kind of complement each other, but they're not all the same. Just in case there is a phage that comes in, a virus that comes in and attacks one certain one, you hopefully will have some other ones that can get through it. But if you do, we have different testing that we do on our whey, the whey that comes off, to see if we kind of have like phage alerts, because if we do, then we have to take it out of rotation for a little bit because there's something in our environment, something like targeted to kill one of those starters in our cheeses. So it could cause like a slower pH drop, just a really slower make, and really in a cheese factory you're on a clock. More in your artisan plants, you do have time to tweak with what you have, but in bigger cheese factories like I'm in, it's on the clock. You kind of have to go whether your cheese is fully ready. Most of the time it really is, but just in case it isn't. And then coagulation can be from acid, enzymes, or both. It coagulates the milk caseins. There's a two-step sequence. The cap casing is hydrolyzed and the casing micelles already stabilized is kind of the first stage. And the second one is they flocculate and they form kind of like a gel to encasing the soluble milk. They kind of encase the soluble milk components in there. And so here is actually a picture on the right, a picture of actually our feta bassine. We call it a bassine. We make actually our feta is made in smaller bassines with only about 1,000 pounds of milk. But here's just an example of when I do tours, I kind of tell the little kids it's just one big cheese curd in there. There's just an example of what it kind of looks like before we would actually cut the coagulum. So next is cutting the curd. The top picture is actually you can cut the curd depending on kind of what kind of cheese you're making. If you're making like Parmesan, you're going to want tiny little curds, just because it's a low moisture cheese. Where feta, you're going to cut it a little bigger because you're high moisture. Where cheddar is kind of in the middle. This is just kind of an example of the hand on the right is just a larger curd, something like what a feta curd would look like. The one on the left We actually did a 2-step cut and we wanted smaller curds because we're going through a trial of making like a cotija. And so that is a lot lower moisture than our fetas, which our fetas are in the higher 40s moisture, where our cotijas we want 40, anywhere between like 38 and 42 is kind of our end goal right now on the type that we're making. So there is a lot different. But after you cut that curd, you heel it. When you're cutting it, you want to make sure you have really sharp knives because you can actually kind of tear it. Your components are going to go out in your way then, where you would want them to kind of stay in your cheese. But before we would cut it, it's kind of a science that, not really a science, but you learn what type of cheese you're making, how firm the cheese is going to be. You actually kind of do a slit cut and bring it up and you see how it actually folds. That's how we kind of learn about if it's very kind of curdy, it's not ready yet. If it's nice and smooth, it's pretty much ready to go, but you don't want it too hard. Otherwise, it's gone too far. It could have too much shear on the knives, and then it could kind of shear the curd instead. So the next part is healing. You have to heal the curd right after it's cut. And that's just to kind of have the cut marks so that it can kind of form your curd. Otherwise, if you agitate it right away, your milk solids are going to go out into your whey, your proteins, your fats, which that's what we want to keep encapsulated into our curd, because that's what makes our curd. At a cheese factory, we don't process our whey really much more, even though whey really is the money maker in the industry now. Not like how it used to be when it went to the pigs, but we sell our cheese. So down the next person down the road that takes our whey, they do that. And then cook. It depends on what cheese you're making to how much you cook till. Where feta, we don't cook it at all. But cheddars, we cook to around 100 and 101 degrees. Because we use a mesophilic culture. So if you would cook to about 105, 106, you're going to start killing off your cultures, which then, your cheese is kind of like done. Not really done from there, but you're gonna get a lot high. You're not gonna get the body, the feel that you want for a cheddar. You're gonna get more of like a Monterey Jack, just because it's a little bit higher moisture. And then the cooking process also expels a little bit more moisture as it's cooking. So next, then you would drain the whey. And that's kind of a time thing also. You kind of want to get a lot of the whey off of there. In our plant, we have double O vats, which is an example of the bottom right. It's kind of, they call them double O in the industry just because it looks like 2 zeros, and there's 2 sets of knives in there. One side of the knife, one side is a knife, and the other side is a little bit duller. So then it stirs the curd as it's cooking, as like and so on afterward. This is actually an example. I think this is one of our owners back in the day. I couldn't really tell because he's a lot younger. But this is an example of how when we used to make cheese actually on a cheese table. Nowadays we make it in that double O vat like on the right, and then we actually pump it over to a table like this. But we have a little plant on the north side of the state, or around Highway 97, which is in Curtis, Wisconsin. The bright yellow building, if you're ever, or on 29, if you're ever on Highway 29, you'll see the bright yellow building in Curtis, where we actually make all of our cheese in a vat like this. It has a steam jacketed and whatnot, where our main plant has it in double O's. So this is how you would cut it, like a manual cut. That's how I learned how to cut. I mean, I really do think that the best way is to do it manual like this. In River Falls, we had a way smaller vat to learn on, where this one is probably about 40,000 pounds of milk, I'm assuming, where ours was not even close to that. So So next I'll talk about the Master Cheese the Master Cheesemaker program. It started so around 1992. This is actually Jim Path. He's one of the program founders. He pitched an idea to Bill Wendorf, Mark Johnson, and John Yagi. They all work at the CDR. Bill Wendorf was a professor at UW-Madison down here, and he's also part of the CDR, or was part of the CDR. He has passed away since then. Presented that they wanted to start a program. Switzerland is the only other country that offers a program like this, and so they kind of wanted to match a little bit what they were doing. And so they brought it to the Wisconsin Specialty Cheese Institute and pitched the program. And as we know it, the program started. In 1994 was the beginning of the Master's Cheese program was announced. So the vision is up on the right there. It's to maintain Wisconsin's reputation as a cheese manufacturing industry leader with diversified cheese making expertise by offering an opportunity for Wisconsin cheese makers to become proficient in cheese technologies and science of cheese making. And that is exactly what it is. It is an educational program. You obviously need to know your trade before coming in, but you will learn a lot from the program, from leaders in the industry that are, some are master cheese, obviously some are master cheese makers that I've been taught from, and some are not. Some are just in academia. So in 1997, the first master cheesemaker class graduated. So as you can tell, 1994, 1997, it is a 3-year program. So to get into the master cheesemaker program, you have to hold a cheesemaker license for 10 years. So, but the first step is actually to get a cheesemaker license, which can take about a year. I actually got mine while I was at River Falls because I worked in the pilot plant. But you have to take a series of classes for that too. You most likely have to have your pasteurizer license, and you have to have like an internship, and someone has to actually sign off for you to take the cheesemaker course, and then you have a state test that goes from that. So it does take a little bit to become a cheesemaker. And then obviously you have to be in cheese making for at least 10 years. To get into the program, you'll then pick 2 different cheeses to like specialize in, and those cheeses you have to have been making for at least 5 years. So I specialized in cheddar and Monterey Jack, which I have been making ever since my River Falls days. I graduated in 2011, so obviously 4 years before that. So I've been making those 2 for quite a while. But to get in, you have to have your cheesemaker license for 10 years, like I said, but you also have to get some letters of recommendation from some people in the industry, not just like, you can get it from, like, obviously I got one from my boss, but it's really looked at nicely if you get someone from somewhere else in the industry that has worked with you. And you have to already have a couple of classes underneath your belt, just because you're going to be taking another full required classes, either down at the CDR here, or River Falls does offer some of them too. So from getting it, once you put in your application, will come to your plant. If you were kind of picked that you have all the qualifications, they come to your plant, you give them a walkthrough of the plant, and then you pretty much go through a 3-hour oral test. They ask you every single little thing about your cheese. Obviously, you're not supposed to know everything, all the answers, because it is an educational program. So I definitely did not know all the answers. I still don't know all the answers, to be honest with you. But that's why you go through more of the science classes and whatnot. There's a cheese grading class that you have to go to, cheese fundamentals, cheese grading, food safety, cleaning and sanitation, and pasteurization. A lot of those I already had. I've also been a pasteurizer operator as long as I've had my cheesemaker license. So a lot of those I've already had, so I really only had to take 3 or 4 classes. But that's just a small piece of it. From there, it's a 3-year program. So every single year, you will be required to submit some of your cheeses to make sure they grade out. There's actually someone that comes into our plant, and you have to have 4 different vats of your cheese in each specialty cheese, and you have to present that. They actually plug it. I thought I had a picture of a cheese dryer, but you'll actually plug it with a cheese dryer. You'll take that cork out, and you'll grade it. You'll grade it in front of them, and it does have to pass a grade for that. And at least 3 out of the 4 of them do every single time you do that. So then, okay, after about the 2.5 years is over, you're almost ready to graduate. Then is the final exam. So it is an 85-page final exam. It is open book. It took about 40 hours to complete. You have to be very, everything you know about cheese making is put into that exam. Actually, to write down some of the stuff on paper, I just got that exam out so I could write, more specifics down. It goes from everything from picking up milk on the farm to the cheese going out the door, different regulations in the cheese plants, every aspect of your cheese plant is on that test. So yeah, it takes about 40 hours. From then you have to submit it. You have about a month to complete it. You submit it, and then you have about a month of waiting until the letter comes in the mail if you passed or not. If you don't pass, they do have you, this is a continuing thing. So you could, they'll have some different steps that you can take to then maybe the next year pass. So obviously I passed the first time. I don't really know any of them that have not passed the first time, but I wouldn't know. So then from there, once you become master cheesemaker, there is a master, this is in the wrong spot. There's a master mark in the upper right corner there. We can actually put that on our cheeses. So it can tell, it's a marketing thing that can tell, there's a master cheesemaker in this cheese in our plant. So every year from then we have to submit a certain amount of cheeses so we can keep that master mark. So every year I have to submit 4 different vats of cheddar, 4 different vats of Monterey Jack, so we can keep putting it on our cheese at the plant. So actually, since I had the last one in the wrong spot, this is just another wage drain, salt addition, and pressing. There's different on the picture on the left actually is a dry salting on a curd. The picture in the middle is actually in our brine room we put feta into brine. And then the upper right is kind of slabs before the cheese is going to be milled like your cheese curds. Obviously, all the cheese is made out of tiny little curd, but you actually go through more of a cheddaring process to get that nice curd. And then on the bottom right is just, it's called a cheese tower. That's how we get our nice 40-pound blocks that are coming out of there. But had it in the wrong spot. So here's the class of 2024 cheesemakers. So actually, obviously I'm the only girl in here, but the guy to the left of me was also a coworker. He recently retired out of Nasonville, but he had 10 different cheeses that he mastered in. He was the second highest. So he was definitely a great mentor to me. You pick a mentor in your program. So right here, I got my friend Melissa. She also worked in the cheese plant with me when I was at Foremost Farms. Obviously, I would have had Brian put the award on me, but he was getting his also. Just because we worked at Nasonville and at Foremost together. Worked with him for about 15 years. He's greatest teddy bear. Looks tough on the outside, fuzzy teddy bear on the inside. So there was in our class, I think there was 4 of us that were new, were just upcoming, and I think there was 6 of them. I think that's what the ratio was. So a lot of these master cheesemakers are going back to go master in another thing. Eventually I will. I don't have plans to do it in the anytime soon, just because plant life. It was a crazy 3 years, but I also have another kid since then. So going down to Madison to go take a class is a little harder when you got 4 littles at home. And a farm. A lot of the classes that I would have to take, they offer it in the fall, which we all know that farming is very busy in the fall. I don't usually see my husband for about a month, except for at 10 o'clock at night when he wants supper. So eventually, when they grow up a little bit, I will try to go for another one or two. But don't plan on it right now. I'm pretty happy with being it. I am one of 4 women master cheesemakers now. So class of 2025, Marika Penterman out of Marika Gouda in Thorpe, Wisconsin. She became the 4th. If you ever travel on Highway 29, you'll see Marika's store. You can't miss it. um, so it's a little bit about that. So I thought I would kind of share a little bit more about Nasonville Dairy also. We are in Wood County, Wisconsin. Just on Highway 10, we have 2 different plants. One of them is our Curtis location on Highway 29. The big ugly yellow, my favorite color is yellow, but on a building, it's just tacky. But the big yellow building, well, actually, it's pretty small compared to this place. You can't miss it. It's an eyesore. But you can we have windows to where you can see us making cheese. But we start at 4 in the morning, so if they're there by noon, you're gonna almost miss it because we're done already. But that's the place you can get them on Highway 29. Cheese curds is our biggest seller in our store. I was gonna bring some today, but they wouldn't let me. So that means you just have to come up to the plants and come get them yourself. Yeah. Once you have a cheese curd pretty much right out of the vat and nice and warm, you can't. It's hard to take one when it's cold. But yeah, if you ever travel to the Marshfield area, definitely stop in. But we also are known for our feta. I think we make like 15% of the world's feta. So feta is kind of made into different varieties. On the upper right, you have feta in a pail. It goes out in a 5-gallon pail, which is about 27 pounds of feta. Our smaller pails hold about 8 to 10 pounds of feta. That feta actually is a block of cheese in brine. So a lot of that will go to food service or a restaurant that wants to crumble it themselves. Otherwise, we sell it in like our retail cuts, our smaller 8-ounce slabs, and in our crumbles. Most of our feta cheese goes out as crumbles. But some of it's spiced, some of it's not. We also have a new innovation, a feta spread. We don't make it. There's a processor in another city, but they use our feta cheese, and it's not as smooth as most processed cheese like that because it actually keeps the feta crumbles in it, which is a really great product. And just a couple more pictures of inside the plant. Of course, I had to put a picture of our cheese curds because that's what we're known for. We sell a lot of it in our gift boxes throughout the Christmas season, which is starting to ramp up. But just another picture of the vat. And then on the left is our feta operation. We actually, the first day I was at the plant, that area where the feta was in was a cooler. By Friday, it was demolished. So that is actually where our feta plant is now. It's a operation it was set up in France. Our owners went and looked at it, said they wanted to buy it. They took it all apart. It went on the boat over here, and then they put it together in our plant. So we were able to see it before we purchased it. But everything is pretty well automated. It took a lot of, we didn't have to have much manpower during the operation. So that really helped. As we all know, finding people to work is very hard. So that was one thing that helped us. So I just want to thank you for having me here and to learn about the dairy industry. It's Wisconsin and we love it. We'll talk about it all day. Thanks for having me. I guess so, as long as they're not too hard.
All right, I know we're a little bit late, but we started a little bit late. Does anybody have any questions? We can take like 1 or 2 if there are any. Oh, okay.
This one works too. Yep.
So I'm from Wisconsin and I'm a big cheese curd enthusiast, and I had never really thought about the origin of cheese curds. Can you have cheese curds from a variety of cheeses that would otherwise be pressed, and these are just paused in that process right after the cutting?
Yeah. So actually most of them are like a cheddar cheese curd that you would buy in a plant around, but I know in Monroe there's is a I'm gonna forget what it is. Oh, it's a different kind of cheese. I can't remember what it is. Obviously, we don't make it. But a cheese curd is a cheese curd. But the main ones are usually around a cheddar, just because. Actually, I really don't know why. They just are. There's really not a standard of identity to cheese curds, so you can call almost any cheese like a cheese curd.
Anybody else? Johnny.
Hello. It's kind of a trick question.
Oh gosh.
If I go to Switzerland in the area of Gruyere, they don't allow silage because it doesn't make good cheese,
Okay.
right? And so,
Don't tell my husband that.
so how would silage influence the cheese taste? And the other thing is, if I go to New Zealand or Switzerland, I see happy cows eating grass. But here, if I go in the country, they have
are confined.
their feet in the mud. And is there a way to make sure the cows are well taken care of?
So I did have a picture even though they're not on grass, a lot of ours now, they are very well happy. I had a picture of the cows and it had sand bedding. That is probably the most comfy for a cow. I swear the mats in our barn are nicer than my mattress almost in my house. No joke. We actually have mattresses in our barn that have water in, so it's a water bed for the cows. And then we have a little bit of we actually use a recycled paper product is what we use because we don't use sand, because sand does a number on chains and pumps and everything, or chains in your barn. You're gonna have to replace them. I'm not sure on the whole silage thing. Obviously I will live on the farm, but I don't know that much about cows. I know how to scrape up after them and I know how to feed calves. But I don't know why the difference. I think it's just traditions that
Anyway,
people do.
congratulations on being a master. So 3 years is great.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's going to be it.
I do have a question for you. So we do a lot of tours at Nasonville Dairy and a lot of kindergarten tours and first graders. And I always ask them, what's the difference between white cheese curds and colored? Because I have so many people come in saying, I only want the colored cheese curd. Really, the only thing is the color. So when someone comes up to you and say, oh my God, the colored ones are so much better than the white, you can just laugh and say, oh, color doesn't